Hey there, good morning. Happy Sunday to everybody. Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with this week's market overview and stocks to watch for the pro members that I am going to share with everybody this week. Got a pretty or not a big list of stocks. I got a decent list of stocks to take a look at, and we'll take a brief look at the sectors that I'm paying closest attention to next week. One thing I did notice going through my scans, a lot of names in the oil and energy space, which was kind of interesting. I'll go into why that's just interesting in a minute. Um, Gold, a lot of gold miners that looked pretty good, um, and small biotech. So those were three sectors that were really kind of standing out to me in this week's scans. But let's take a look next week for the economic calendar. We do have a lot of economic data coming through. We've got NFIB Small Business Index, Consumer Pricing Index, core CPI, durable goods orders, construction spending, weekly jobless claims. You know, that jobs number on Friday kind of spooked the markets a little bit. We get new home sales data, business inventories, Empire State Manufacturing Index, industrial production, all kinds of stuff. Job openings, consumer sentiment. So could be a impactful week from an economic data standpoint. And then, of course, we're winding up the earnings season. We don't have as many of the big names, but we do have some names that I will be paying attention to. I've got a list of stocks in the list of stocks to watch for the pro members. And then there are other names that didn't quite make the list, but I will be keeping an eye on them, like this Veristem, Momo. I'll be keeping an eye on that. DocuSign, Domo. Those will be ones that I'll probably be keeping an eye on. And let's see, is there another one in here? That's pretty much Switch. I'll be keeping an eye on Switch, local Las Vegas company. I do have a little position that I'm underwater in for a long-term hold. We'll see what happens there. That has been a pretty disappointing IPO. Oracle, of course, another one to at least keep an eye on. And then we'll get into the list of stocks to watch in a minute. Let's take a look at the individual sectors that are on my radar. Gold, like I said, is something that I'm keeping an eye on because a lot of the gold miners, I actually have one in this week's stocks to watch list. But GLD, a little bit of a bouncing up into the underside of the 50-day moving average. You do have a golden cross, right? You have the 50 that crossed above the 200-day. And if the markets really start to roll over, perceived safety trade, maybe gold continues to move higher. We'll have to see how it plays out. IBB, which I thought was actually one of the more constructive looking sectors, was consolidating nicely, did pop up and then hit the bottom the bottom of this trend line here, right? Found some resistance, pulled back, broke below the 200-day, and now is sitting on the 50-day. And I think this is a pretty. So you have potential price support here. Let's take a bigger look. We got some potential price support here. Say right around the 105, 106 area. If we break below the 50-day and we lose that 106, then there's a real strong possibility that we're going to come down and maybe test somewhere around the $100 mark, right? And see if that holds. And breaking below the 50-day, I think a lot of people are going to be watching for that this week. IWM, right? We got up into an area of price resistance. We had an amazing run, so a pullback. Not a big shocker. We did manage to climb above the 200-day, but we lost it. And now we are potentially looking at a pullback to the 50-day moving average and potential price support right around 145, 146 area. We'll see how it acts there. All right. IYT transportation index, an index that a lot of people pay close attention to, couldn't hold the 200-day, pulling back to an area of potential price support somewhere in about the 180 area, and the 50-day, right? So we'll have to see if the 50-day winds up holding for a lot of these sectors. If we lose that, we may see some additional selling pressure. So JNUG and Nugget, those are the triple levered ETFs. Something to keep an eye on if you don't have an individual gold name and gold does start to rally. Maybe you look to take this for a short-term trading opportunity, not necessarily looking for a long-term swing or a long-term hold position, but maybe a short-term swing, maybe a day trading opportunity if gold really starts to rip. QQQs, right? So we got above the 200-day, pulling back again. Where is the key level of potential support? I would suggest that could be the 50-day moving average, and maybe somewhere around about $160, 160 or so. See if that area acts as price support. SMH, we broke below the 200-day. A lot of the semiconductor stocks are down big. Again, we'll have to see how we act at this 50-day, right? Pull back to about $95 or so and see if that holds as support. But, this could be just a healthy pullback. There is a lot of talk from the financial networks that, even if we get a China deal, it's already baked into the cake, and it's a sell the news event. And I think it's really dangerous to start thinking about something and getting a mental bias about an event before the event happens, right? So we don't know what's in the deal. It could be a deal that everyone is surprised by, that's very happy about. And if we continue to roll over before any kind of an announcement, we could be setting ourselves up for a pretty dramatic rally. And I know there's a lot of concern about the global slowdown and all that other stuff. You got Brexit, we've got other stuff going on, but to get yourself mentally in a place where you're thinking, oh, if we get a China deal, it's a sell the news event, I would be careful about that, right? Let's see what the deal is. Let's see what the details are, and then we can make a determination. And then let's see what the price action is, right? And then we can make a determination as to whether or not it was a sell the news event. S&P 500, we broke below the 200-day, looking for potential price support somewhere around the 265 area or so. 50-day moving average, let's see how it acts there, see if we find some support. If the markets continue to roll over, TVIX had a little bit of a bounce. I mentioned last week that these were TVIX and TZA, both were looking like potential short-term trading opportunities. They were at an area of potential support. And what did we get? We got a little bit of a bounce last week. Can that continue? Sure. Let's take a look and see if we get any kind of follow through. There could be trading opportunities there. TVIX 200-day, likely find some resistance there. TZA actually broke above and closed above the 200 days, so we'll have to see if we get any follow through there. Aerospace defense pulling back right to the 200-day, could find some support there. If not, we'll look and see how we act around the 50-day. Industrials testing the 200-day as support. Got the 50-day just below it here, right around 71 or so. Healthcare XLV pulled back, testing the 200-day and the 50-day. So interesting stuff going on there within the healthcare space. I still kind of like healthcare, so worth keeping an eye on that sector. I think this is a pretty key area. $88, I think, could be a area of potential price support. And then XOP. So this is why I found it interesting that there were several energy names that were within my scan that looked really good. USO is just consolidating, but XOP, oil and exploration, actually not looking that great, right? Lost the 50-day, actually pulled back last week, right? And we're at an area maybe where we can find some price support. If this breaks right here, it's not a lot of support, but if this breaks, let's call it $28 or $27.50. If that breaks down, we could see a double bottom test come down into this 25 area and see if that holds the support and then maybe get a double bottom bounce. All right, so that's the breakdown on the sectors that really are in focus for me next week. Let's take a look real quick at one other thing here. Let's take a look before I move into the stocks to watch. Let's take a look at a couple of key indicators. We got the McClellan oscillator, which when it gets down, I mean, this is where we were at in December, right? We got down to 250, and we actually got down to 200. It's like a level of fear in the marketplace. So we're starting to see a bit of fear out there, right? Did have a little bit of a reversal on Friday, but I think this is a pretty key area to watch. We get down to this 250, could be an indication that we are due for a bit of a bounce, a little rally. So keep that in mind. Caution flag is out, but we could see, maybe we see a little more weakness in the first part of the week, and then we find, the 50-day to be support in some of these indexes. We get a little bounce. Now, how long that is sustainable, I don't know. We'll have to see, but worth keeping in mind. T2107 and T2108. The one that was concerning to me was the T2108. I brought it up several times saying that we were just way overdone to the upside. Last week I was saying I'd like to see it pull back into about the 50 area. Well, guess where we're at? We're at about the 50 area right now. So you got the 200-day. I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to the moving averages for T2108, but we do have the 200-day there as potential support. This could be an interesting spot to also maybe start to bounce. If this doesn't hold, if we continue to roll over, remember that if we get below 20, that is usually an indication that maybe it's time to start getting a little aggressive and picking up some stocks for a bounce play. So let's see what happens with T2108, but it has come out of the stratospheric levels to a more manageable place. Maybe get down to this 44 area, 44, and see if that holds for a support for a bounce. But caution flags out, but looking for potential bounce trade opportunities. All right, now let's head into the stocks to watch for this week. All right, AQB. So one of the members actually brought this up in the live chat trading room on Friday, and we were going to definitely keep an eye on this for next week. And literally, right after we had got done taking a look at it, the thing came out with some news and exploded. I tried to hit it for a day trade. I didn't get a fill. But there is a potential for an opportunity for a day trade next week, right? Maybe a red to green type move. I mean, it popped right up into potential price resistance. Could it get up into the $657 area? That's possible. It looks like it was pretty good news, but this company has no revenues really. They need, probably going to need to, or probably I don't think they need to raise cash right now. But if the stock really spikes, they may take the opportunity to raise capital because they do need capital. They don't have really any revenues yet. So it's an interesting name. It's got I think a fairly small float. Let's take a look at this real quick. AQB. I'm sure this will be on a lot of day traders' radar come Monday. Big short, or shorts will probably be looking at this for a potential opportunity as well. All right, so we have 6.9 million shares outstanding. I'm not sure what the float is here. And I did go to their site to see if they had a S3 filing. That's something that you always want to kind of check out when you're looking at maybe taking a trade or a swing in a stock. Just go to their, go to FinViz, click on the name, go to their investor relations department, and then go to SEC filings, and you can look for registration statements, right? So you're looking for an S3 filing, which they do have out there. They have an S3, so they could raise capital. All right, so, but keep an eye on AQB for a potential day trading opportunity. And really kind of what I was thinking is maybe we get a pullback. Let me go back to the chart here. So we've got potential support, maybe around $4, right? We've got a little bit of price support here. Pull back to 4, red to green. If 4 fails to hold, maybe the place to look for a bounce is somewhere around $3.40, right? That could be a spot to take a look at for a quick bounce trade. And then the other thing, if you've been following me for a while, there are a couple of things that I like to see. Is whether or not there's any insider buying. You go to openinsider.com, AQB. There was a insider buy. Kirk Randall. Let's see, when was this? This was 1/19/2018. Bought 1,538,000 shares at $3.25. So that's worth at least noting, right? Doesn't look like there's been any insider sales, but that was a pretty sizable buy. Owns 7 million shares. Pretty sizable chunk there. So anyway, keep an eye on that one. Could be a day trading opportunity. Could be, look, if you bank some, and you want to hold some as a lotto swing, I don't see anything wrong with that, but it has a tendency to pop and flop. Pop and flop. So just keep that in mind. All right, MAXR. So I wanted to bring this up because of the fact that it's one of my active trade plans. And let me bring that up real quick here. Active trade plan on MAXR. I took this at $6.86. I put out a summary of what I was looking at. I took it before their earnings. So I'm down, but I took 100 shares, right? I didn't take a big position in this. I'm looking at this as a potential turnaround play. And what I've been looking for is I've been looking for a big flush down, right? I wanted to see everybody, start dumping shares after the bad news. They had a failed satellite. I knew that they were going to cut their dividend. I actually wrote that in here, I think, in my trade plan. New CEO pays a high dividend, which could be cut, right? I put that in my summary. And that's what happened when they had their earnings. So I took this little position because I want to keep an eye on this stock and look for an opportunity to potentially add on a big flush. Now, we had a flush. I did not add. Had a little bit of a bounce on Friday, and I was wondering, okay, why did this thing bounce? Maybe that was the flush and reversal I was looking for. And as it turns out, there was some insider buying. And there hasn't been any insider buying in this name in a long time, right? So the president and CEO picked up 20,000 shares. Director picked up 10,000 shares. Executive vice president, CTO, and a director. All right, so all together, what do we got here? We got about 55,000 shares. Not a significant amount of shares, but they are dipping the toe. And I like to see that from insiders. So does that mean I'm going to jump in and buy the stock right now, right here, or add to my position? Not sure yet. We could get a double bottom test, and then, in the 4 and change area. The problem that I have with this is that it's all-time lows. I mean, we could be making a double bottom here, right? I've got a little position in it, great. But we could come back down and retest this 440 low. My problem with this is that this is all-time lows. The stock's never been in this area, right? We're kind of in uncharted territory, and a lot of times stocks will go much farther than you think, right? And if you're long and you've been holding on to this thing, maybe you haven't felt max pain yet. I mean, I would find that hard to believe that you haven't found max pain, but maybe you haven't felt it yet. So, maybe you get this huge flush and get down to $2. I don't know. I don't know the stock well enough yet to make that determination. So I'm going to be continuing to watch it. That's why I have the small position. I could look to add. We'll see. Maybe it finds resistance here at 550 and then comes back down, tests 450, and then we get a bounce. So that's what I'm looking at with Maxer. It's a long-term hold, turnaround, specialty situation that I'm looking for in MAXR. They had a kitchen sink quarter. A lot of times they have 2 kitchen sink quarters, right? And then you start to see the turnarounds take effect with the new CEO. So that's what I'm looking for in Maxer for the long-term hold. ARPO, so look, small biotechs, right, after the BPTH crazy move. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be trying to push these low float, bios that, claiming they're the next BPTH. We may not see another BPTH, right? That was an extreme example of shorts getting caught. Of course, if you watch Twitter, everybody traded it perfectly. Everyone was long when you needed to be long, and no one was short when. And everyone was short when you needed to go short. So it was nobody got hurt in this stock apparently. But I think some shorts really got taken to the cleaners in BPTH. So you're going to see a lot of small cap bios being pushed, right? And they could present some trading opportunities. I recommend that before you jump into any of these stocks, just go to FinBiz real quick, pull up their chart, take a look and see if they need some cash. Look for those S3 filings, right? See what their cash balance is, so that you can determine whether or not you're going to take it for a day trade or a swing, or right. Familiarize just a little bit with the fundamentals. I think that's pretty critical. ERII, very nice pop on Friday. I think that was earnings related. It had some volume. Stochastics curling up. This could be an interesting potential swing or day trading opportunity. 33.9 million shares in the float. Maybe a pullback to 850, 860. There's some potential price support there for a bounce, a little red to green action there. See if we get any follow through of this move. Could find some resistance, I'd say, in about the $9.70 to $10 area. So, but could present a nice trading opportunity. NDRA, another small cap bio. I think these guys have earnings next week, or I don't know if they're a biotech, but they have earnings next week. It's it closed above the 50-day moving average, had some pretty decent volume. It's been holding this 157, 160 area as potential price support. Could be a day trading opportunity here. Maybe headed into earnings. Let's see, they report on the 11th. No, so let's see, that's Monday. So it could be a mover after earnings, right? I would not chase a gap on this thing. Look for a good clean intraday setup. Could have some resistance around 235 or so, 235, 250, somewhere in that area, but worth keeping an eye on. FOMX, Okay, so FOMX I took as a trade. I put out a trade plan for the pro members. Where is it? Colin put out a $30 price target, so that's an active trade plan that we have going, or that I have going right now. I just bought a couple hundred shares. I have not traded FOMX in the past. I wish I would have bought more shares. I had an entry of $3.61. My first target was $4. It's already hit that. It's actually up. Let's see, where are we at? 436. The next target was 475. Because I only have a couple hundred shares, I didn't take any off the table. I'm looking to see if we get that 475. And then maybe I take some off the table, look for a pullback, and then add more aggressively on a pullback to potential support. So wanted to give an update on Fomex. AGI. It's got a good looking setup. Now this is the gold play that I'm not really into the gold miners all that much. I'm certainly not a gold bug. But what I like about this chart quite a bit is it is consolidating right below the $5 holla. It's over 5 now, but it was consolidating right below the $5 holla. It's above the 200-day. We have the potential for a golden cross, right? Got the 50 maybe crossing above the 200. I just like the setup on this quite a bit technically, right? So if we draw a trend line here, right, we kind of popped above that trend line, consolidated right below the 200-day, popped, consolidating above the 200-day. So we're stair-stepping up. We got a nice little trend line here, right, going from the lower left to the upper right. And we've got a really clearly defined area of potential price support around, 460, 450, place to put our stop. You want to put your stop just below 440. And then what are you looking for? Maybe a pop up into the $6 range, right? And then maybe come all the way up and test this longer term trend line right around $7. So pretty interesting setup there in AGI. I like this look. I like the way that it consolidated, pulled back, and now we're testing this area of price support. Look for it to take that out. You got stochastics curling up. You got MACD, Histo, which looks like it's about to go positive. So AGI, pretty hot looking gold name. Worth keeping an eye on this one. And they don't report earnings until 5/7, so they might have already reported earnings recently. So INSG, it's another one that I have had some lottos left in this name. I recently added. And let's see, where did I add? Let me pull this up real quick. INSG. So originally my buy on this was, what was it, $3.35. And I added, right, so bringing my dollar cost average down. I like this. This is in a long-term hold account, and I'd like to actually build out the position larger. I'd like to get about 1,000 shares in this, maybe 2,000 shares, but it's got a pretty nice looking setup here, right? We pulled back, we tested this trend line to the T, really pulled back, kissed it, and bounced on Friday. Kind of got a little cup with handle thing going on here. If it breaks down to $4, or even pulls back all the way down to 350, where you got the 200-day and some price support, this is a longer-term hold play. It's a 5G play. They reported earnings. Their earnings look decent. Their revenue is growing. I like this, like I said, as a long-term hold 5G play. Pull back to 350. And maybe I look to build out my entire position in that area, depending how the price action is, or depending on how it's acting, what the overall market's doing. But that's what I'm looking for. If it takes out $6, I could look to add for a scalp. Or if it takes out this trend line, actually, I could look to add to my position looking for $6, and then take some off the table and see if we get a break through 6. Something like that. All right, WTI. I tried to I tried to get a fill on this on Friday. I've played WTI many times. It has had insider buying, some pretty significant insider buying. I think that was in the 3 and change range. CEO is pretty aggressive there. I think he also bought in the 1 and change range. So stair stepping, right? And it's actually below the 50-day, or it was below the 50-day, and I was trying to get a fill around 480. That order did not fill, so it expired. I'm going to look and see what this does next week. But I would love to get this thing either in this 480, get a little starter going. If it pulls to 450, I'll look to add. Gets down to 350, I'll build out my entire position. It's a hold. It's a swing. It's a longer term play. I mean, this thing has had some really nice moves. It's got insider buying. There's a lot that I like about WTI. I may try to get some kind of a fill, some kind of a starter going in WTI. CLXT has earnings on the 12th. Got a great looking setup on the daily. Got a nice little flag pattern right above the 200-day moving average. Farm products, it's got a tiny float, 8.7 million shares in the float. Only traded 76,000 shares on Friday. So that is a potential issue with CLXT. It's a thin trader, but it's at, it takes out $17 with conviction, with some volume. You can get a nice move out of this. It's broken this long-term trend line. It was a recent IPO. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. CLXT, it's got a great looking setup on the daily, small float play. BIOS, I took this on Friday. I had a trade plan on BIOS, and I took a little position, just a tiny little position, ahead of earnings this week. That's why it's a tiny position. It has been holding up really, really well here at the 200-day moving average. And, I was trying to get it at about 309, $3. And it did pierce below the 200-day, but it's been holding up really, really well. And I think, so it had a beautiful setup here. I think this was earnings related right here. Big pop, got up to $4, pulled back, tested 4, little double top there. And now we've pulled back. This is really the first time after this big breakout that it's pulling back and testing that 200-day. And then the other thing I really like about this is where it's sitting here. Look at this price support, right? Going back, look at this. $3, it was resistance, 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 till it finally broke through. So now I'm really kind of thinking, well, that was really, really good resistance. Maybe it's going to act as really, really good support. So let's see. It's a risky play, because if they miss earnings, then maybe it breaks down. Right? It's had but it's been in a nice uptrend. I like the setup on it. Stochastics are starting to curl up. MACD is looking like it might go positive. These guys have a good earnings report. Could pop right up to $4. And if you take $4 out, I think it gets even more interesting, right? Look at this stock. Look at where it's come from. 4 is a big area of potential resistance. Take that out. I think, you get a pop maybe into the $6 range, $5.50, $6, maybe even $7.50. But it's got an interesting setup. So I took a little starter on it. I'm going to see what earnings look like, see what their guide looks like, see what the price action is, and I might might wind up adding to that position. All right, let's go to ACB. So these guys got an upgrade last week. You know, the pot stocks themselves, the pot sector is looking a little tired. A couple of the leader names, Tilray, I think they got downgraded. Not that chart is not looking great. CGC is not actually looking all that great. CGC looks better, right? But Tilray, which was one of the leaders, caught the downgrade. Now this could be a double bottom test, but if this breaks, this $64, that's been acting as a big area of potential support. If that breaks, then it could bring the sector down with it. So keep that in mind. But I like ACB as a potential long-term hold, speculative pop play. Pull back into $7, $6.80, somewhere in that area. I think it's interesting to maybe take for a swing or long-term hold starter. It did bounce off the 20-day on Friday. If it winds up taking out 850 with some conviction, could be a nice day trading scalp opportunity. So looking for it for a couple of opportunities there, swing or day trade. SMSI, been watching this one for a long time. They report on the 13th. Typically, they have a tendency to overpromise and underdeliver when it comes to earnings. They just had the death cross. So, this is a very speculative name. It's only got 10.5 million shares in the float. One of the things that I think would be big for these guys is if T-Mobile Sprint got an approval to merge. That could be a catalyst for this stock. If they disappoint and it pulls back into the $1.40, $1.50 area, it could be an interesting spot. Maybe take it for a bounce play. If they report better than expected earnings, because of that small float, could be a gapper, right? So we got Stochastics RSI looking like they're going to curl. MACD kind of looks like it's going positive or could go positive. A good strong earnings report, it could send this thing. So I wouldn't chase the gap up. Maybe consider taking a little lotto ahead of earnings. I haven't decided yet, but worth keeping an eye on SMSI. I do like the setup here. CTL. So insider buys, I've mentioned, that's important to me. You had some insiders picking up shares. Now, I hate this company personally. I actually canceled their service. Can't stand the company. But as a long-term hold play, potentially, you had the director, you had the CFO, and the CEO pick up shares. 83,000, 50,000, 8,000 from 1194 to 1175 up to 1195, right? So pretty significant insider buys there. Ugly ass, excuse my French, daily long-term chart. Maybe you get it. I mean, look, now you know where these guys are dipping their toe, right? Let me see what this thing looks like on a. So could it go lower? Yeah, absolutely. This wasn't $11, right? $11 could be an interesting spot for a potential bounce. I mean, where these guys, the insiders, took shares. Maybe 950. There looks like there's some potential price support on the long term time frame there. I mean, it has broken this low, so I mean, maybe you get another double bottom test down at 1150 or so. It's a thicker stock. This is a much thicker stock. 630 million shares in the float, right? So it takes a lot to move it. At least you have a point of reference as to where insiders are starting to buy the shares. If it gets down to $9-10, maybe you look to take it a couple of bucks cheaper than where they got it, right? And hold on to it. Look for a big flush and reversal candle on the daily time frame. But it's clearly in a downtrend. The earnings were disappointing. They are going to try and address some things there, but it's worth keeping an eye on CTL. More of a swing type play, and try to get it below where the insiders bought it. VHC, they have earnings on the 15th. It's got a great looking setup on the daily. These guys have a lawsuit against Apple that they've won, I think, 25 times. They've just never gotten paid on it. That's the problem with these patent plays. But it's in an interesting spot, right? It pulled back into the 460 area and bounced nicely. Could take out this 6 and maybe go up and test the 850. Could be a day trading opportunity. Could be a swing opportunity depending on what they have to say in their earnings call. And probably somewhere closer to $4 would be the spot that I would be interested. 379, 380, somewhere in that area. Maybe a pullback to 450. I don't know. Have to see what earnings are, but this could be a day trading or swing opportunity on a pullback. PVTL, 239 million shares in the float, not a thin stock. It broke out, nice flat top breakout over 20 bucks, got up to 24, pulling back to 20 again. 1950, 1960 area could be support, and they have earnings on the 14th. So this could act as, this level that it's sitting at could act as a springboard to move higher. Now this is a fairly new IPO. If you look at it though, I mean, this thing to the T came right up into this long-term trend line, pulled back, right? So if it does report good earnings, likely going to have some resistance at that trend line once again, which would be right around 23 bucks. You take that trend line out though, could get pretty interesting for PVTL. TEUM earnings this week, flagging out. We missed this one. We were watching this one pretty closely in the live chat room for a swing opportunity. It's had an amazing run. It is consolidating here. See what earnings are. They're on the 12th. Could wind up pulling back to $3. Could be an interesting spot for potential price support and bounce. If it takes out 4, that could be interesting as well, right? Maybe get a pop up into the 5 and change range. So day trading opportunity, maybe a swing if earnings are good, guidance is good, and the stock sells off. Could be an opportunity for a swing on a pullback to price support. Almost done. HEAR. Full disclosure, I own it. It's in my long-term hold account. I had some lottos. I played this before this huge breakout. They report earnings on the 14th, and I think they are going to absolutely crush it. Now, what will be key for these guys will be the guidance, because everyone thinks this is a one and done, boom and bust. I think a story was what Kramer said. And if they give poor guidance, that could give credence to that belief. I personally think that with the new game Apex Legends, multiplayer is huge. Call of Duty, Black Ops, that has been a big performer. If you're going to play those games, you got to have headsets. And I just don't see this Battle Royale, I don't see it dying. I don't see it dying anytime soon. So guidance will be key. The only issue with these guys with management is they tend to be conservative. So they tend to sandbag, right? Which is good. I mean, they beat earnings on a fairly consistent basis, but they tend to sandbag, and that's could be an issue. So we'll have to see. I mean, it's at a pretty critical spot. If it breaks down below 14 or 15 bucks, gets down into the $12 range. If guidance is good, if these guys give good guidance, but they're just being somewhat conservative, and it gets down into the $12.50 range, I'm probably going to look to add to my position. If they have, unless they say something really negative in their earnings transcript, I plan on holding on to this, unless something really significantly changes fundamentally. Then I may get out. RDUS, this I believe these guys have they might have had some insider buying. I think that's what it was. Insider buying. It's kind of got an interesting look here. Worth keeping an eye on it. It's only got 27.3 million shares in the float. It's at an area of potential price support, sitting at the 50-day. Maybe get a little bounce here. UTSI, they report earnings on, wait a minute. It says 3/8, but that's not correct. They report this week. I think it's Thursday. It's got a great looking setup. Now, Insider has been buying shares at, or 10% owner, I should say, has been buying shares at $4.54. It's been consolidating right above the 200-day. They report good earnings, could be an interesting play. If they report bad earnings and it pulls back to $3.40, that 10% owner that's been buying it at $4.54, I'd be buying it $1 better than where they're buying it. They also 10% owner adding to their stake, buying 9 million shares at $5.35 a share. Right? They bought them from another large shareholder, so they bought them at $5.35. If I could get it at $3.40, and then provided their earnings are looking decent and so forth and so on. That could be an interesting spot to take it for a swing. So, and if they report good earnings, we might get a breakout here. So, worth having on the radar. I think this has got a fairly small float. Let me take a look real quick. What do we got? 19.6 million shares in the float. That's a small float, right? So this could be interesting. Price target for this is $5.50. So UTSI, potential day trade, potential swing. If it were to pull back to an area, somewhere around 350, 340, I could maybe look to take it for a swing after the earnings. DFRG, these guys are exploring strategic alternatives, or were exploring strategic alternatives. They have earnings on the 12th. It's kind of been consolidating between the $7.60 and $9. It's right at the 50-day. Good earnings. Maybe this gets a pop, and then you look for it to take out the 200-day moving average, get a little flat top breakout above 9. Could be interesting for a trading opportunity, maybe a swing. Let me see what DFRG has in float. DFRG. Oh, and the other thing too. So let's see. The float on DFRG is 32 million shares in the float, 11% short interest. And I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, 10% owners been buying shares recently, right? 52,000 shares at $8.19. 80,000 shares at $7.90, right? Another 44,000 shares at $8.19. 55,000 shares. So look at all this 10% owner has been pretty aggressive, really from 6 and change up to 8. So, regardless of what happens with the stock price after earnings, that there's a pretty active insider buyer or 10% owner buying there, right? So maybe a pullback to the 650 area. I would think they're probably going to come in and try and defend that area. And like I said, these guys are exploring strategic alternatives, and it happens to be one of my favorite restaurants. But worth keeping an eye on DFRG. Probably, it could be a swing. Pull back to 750, 650, somewhere in that area. Could be a breakout play over 9, depending on what they say in their earnings call. STXS, small float. It's got a good looking setup on the daily. These guys report next week. Right, it's got a little pennant formation going on here. Pulls back to $1.65, $1.50. Could be an interesting spot for a bounce. If it takes out to 50 with some volume, or 240 actually, 240, 250 with volume could be very interesting. Potential flat top, long-term resistance breakout, right? You look at it at the weekly time frame, it's got a pretty interesting, it's in an interesting area. So worth keeping an eye on this one for a potential trading opportunity. Let me see what the float is on that real quick. I know this is a long video, but this is pretty good stuff here, people. Hopefully you're still watching. Let me see what's STXS. Yeah, there's no insider buying going on in STXS, so that's a little disappointing, and I can't find out what the float is on it. But I think it's a pretty small float. And then last one, ARQL. So look, this has been on my radar. I didn't have a trade plan put out for this, but I did take it last week. I announced it in the trade in the live chat room that I took it for a day trade, and then I've still got some lottos for a swing. I just want to talk about why I like this, and so I liked it because of this setup here, right? So we had a director that has bought 181,000 shares at 550. It was consolidating. Look how long it was consolidating right here at the 50-day. I just love the look of the daily setup. It finally kind of broke over this longer-term trend line and just kind of grinding and sideways at the 50-day. And then they reported earnings, and they had some good data. Earnings, they don't have any earnings, but they had some good data within that earnings report. And the reason why I took it for the day trade and then I held some lottos was because, let's go to a 5-minute chart. It had gapped up, right? It gapped up. Actually, let me go to the 5-minute window. We'll go back here. So it had a big gap up, right? And then it pulled back. And it held, or it kind of held the VWAP. And then reclaimed it. And when it bounced, I took it at 440. And it flagged right above the VWAP, and then it went off to the races, up to 6. I took some off, close to 570, 575. And then I've held some shares because it's been consolidating just above $5. Right, we've got some potential support there. So I took most of it off the table, but Colin put a $30 price target on it. Or no, they didn't. I got that confused with another one. I apologize. So why I took it was on that 5-minute. The other thing besides the VWAP is it was consolidating right here at the 200-day, and I felt as though if we could break back above the 200-day, we'd get a pretty nice little pop, which is exactly what happened. So now watching that 200-day as potential support to see if maybe we get some follow through. It had a big move, pulled back, lower volume, huge volume on the pop, right? Pulled back, lower volume. So maybe we put in a little flag formation here, pull back to 450 or so, see if that holds its support, and then get some follow through. So that's worth keeping an eye on for potential follow through as well. Okay, that's it. That's my entire list of stocks to watch for trading and investing. This is what I do every single week for the pro members when it comes to the full list of stocks to watch, right? And you've got a little bit of an idea of what we do with the trade plans that are sent out. There's pending trade plans. Look, the whole thing is to show people the process of building out a trade plan, then waiting for that stock price to come to you or the plan to develop so that you can take your entry. Just want to show you here real quick, and we'll be done with this video, and you can move on with the rest of your day. Let's just go back here to the trade plans. So you've got pending trade plans, you got active trade plans, and then you've got the completed trade plans, and here they are, right? Here's the list of completed trade plans. CRNT, 60%. Apps, 60%. FLNT, down 8%. Hain. Gives you an idea of what's going on over here at Alpha Wolf Trading. $197 a year. That's it. $197 a year to join. Have live trade, screen share, live trading room with voice, screen share, trade plans, these videos. I mean, come on. $197 a year. Check it out. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and good luck trading next week. Could be an interesting week. Let's see how it plays out. Caution flag is out, but opportunities could be presenting themselves soon. All right. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.